Welcome to ACST Technology's Enabling the Changing Catholic Church podcast.
I'm Terry Poplava, host of Enabling the Changing Catholic Church. Very excited to be here today with the Reverend Charles Salter, who is both an ordained Methodist minister as well as the founder of Mission Insight, which many of you may be familiar with, and with Mark Joseph, who's the Vice President of Outreach and Evangelization at Franciscan University in Steubenville. We're here today to talk a little bit about what it means to be part of a community. What can we learn from each other, from our different perspectives? And then what are our perspectives on community, on engaging people in our church? How can we use the knowledge we gain from each other to be better as church so we can all thrive in following Christ? Today, we're going to start with our first of four topics, the topic of growth. Now, growth might be a little bit of an old word, but it still gets used in the context of church. And in my experience, it's been used really differently. When I talk to one denomination versus another, when they hear growth, they have something in mind, and it's not always the same thing. Let me go to you, Chuck. Just talk to me a little bit about when you hear growth, what does it mean?
Well, thank you, Jerry. Growth has changed in my world over the years. When we talk about growth in the late 60s and early 70s, there was a church growth movement that came largely out of a seminary on the West Coast, Fuller Seminary, and it was about numbers. It was about people in the pews. It was about strategies to get people in the pews. It really resulted in an attractional model of doing evangelism and moving the church forward, which then fell out of favor. So now when we talk about growth, it's a different thing. And for me, it's always been multifaceted anyway. So
one of the things sometimes I hear, and it's not always Methodism, it might be some of the other denominations, particularly some of the evangelicals seem to think about growth. It's like a priority. We are church. Our purpose is to start other churches. Is that a fair interpretation of what is talked about, or am I oversimplifying?
No, I think that's correct. I think if you have a conversation with most mainline Protestant groups and you talk about growth, they are thinking about external focus. They are thinking about multiple opportunities. Sometimes it's focused upon a particular church need. I'm sorry to say, for many of our churches in the Protestant world, it's out of a sense of need more than mission. We need to grow because we have challenges financially. We have challenges with leadership, with energy, and because often the characteristics of a church is not like the community, older. Growth is almost a response to some level of distress.
Well,
So
I think that's true. I think, but I also really, my understanding is that the interpretation of the Great Commission is expressly to plant churches.
Absolutely.
And that I think that's different from how Catholics view it. What would you say, Mark?
I think that many Catholics don't even understand what the Great Commission means, and don't even know that Matthew 28:19 exists within Scripture.
Well, yeah, we're going to talk about that in upcoming topics too.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, I think that the Catholic Church has been a church of, my personal opinion, has been a church of immigration, and we grew through immigration in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And never really, to be honest with you, again, my personal opinion, it has been a church of evangelization, which is our specific call as Catholics. So my experience is that a lot of things that are being done in the realm of parish renewal, specific to the Catholic Church, are new to the church, and as such, a foreign concept where adoption has been slower than we might like.
Let me go back to growth specifically, though, because what I'm thinking is that growth, I don't remember hearing it. In my parishes, growth was not an objective necessarily. And that's what I'm after here is I don't hear us talking about growth. I don't hear us talking about necessarily getting a lot more people into the church. Or while we do form other churches, it's not at the parish level an express purpose of our parishes that I understand. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Historically, absolutely. I'm 60 years old. I don't recall hearing that language in the Catholic Church at all. So yeah, my experience will be very similar to yours. I think things have changed, with the Catholic Church being the place that it is and having an issue with a shortage of clergy, with priests, and having way too much real estate. There's been a clustering that's going on, a closing of parishes, which is the reality of the church. But joined with that in a lot of places, hopefully all places, but not necessarily so, is this idea of evangelization and how do we grow? And in the circles that I run in, that's a primary focus of attention. But in your everyday Catholic parish, I would agree with you. You don't hear much about growth.
Right. So this is a perfect, I think, segue into our next topic, which is about evangelism, evangelization, and re-evangelization. What I do think, though, is there's a difference in denominational interpretation of the word growth that is about an expressed desire to go out and form new churches. Many of us are talking about how do we form our people so that we can form new churches. That's coming up next. I look forward to talking with you guys about that.
Join us next time on Enabling the Changing Catholic Church.